And good morning. We are live on the Falcons podcast. It is a Wednesday edition before the Falcons take on and host the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday. Dallas is coming in 3-4. The Falcons are coming in 5-3. But I think this is going to be a pretty close game. We'll get into all of that before we get started. My name is Scott Kennedy. I will be your host. I am in Atlanta. And my co-host, Nick Kendall, is out today. He's dealing with some family issues, sick wife, sick baby, and no sleep. So he would rather be here. I promise you that. So he's not going to be here. We go live on Mondays and Wednesdays on these channels. So if you're listening after the fact, we're at youtube.com/Scott Kennedy. We're also at Scott Kennedy Sports and Falcons on SI on Facebook. If you want to come join us and come say hey on a live show, which people do, which I think is very cool. And if you're watching or you're listening after the fact, make sure you leave us a review. Those help us out a whole lot. But we go live. One of the reasons we go live is because I like the interaction. I like the question and answers. And, what do you want to talk about? What's on the mind of Falcons fans? So I want to say hello to some folks that have come in nice and early this morning. Like Victor Atkins. Victor's in early. Good to see you, Victor. He says, good morning, y'all. Hope all is well. Looking forward to this matchup. Hopefully we can get some defensive players back. Yeah, I don't know how many of them are coming back, honestly. One of the guys that it's the weirdest thing. I've never seen a guy that was day-to-day miss 4 games. And that was Troy Henderson, the linebacker, who is NFC Defensive Player of the Week and then pulls a Houdini. We haven't seen him since. And it was worrisome when we saw it that, he got rolled up and he hit his knee and we're like, okay, that looks bad. And it's like, oh, he's day to day. Oh, okay, good. Well, maybe he misses this game, and then you have a long week after a Thursday, and he comes back. Well, he's missed 4 games. That's an injured reserve spot. Is 4 games. So it is a little strange for me on that one. We're up in our to our knees in Victor's today. We got Victor, and I'm gonna butcher your name, Marinoni. Victor, we go way back, and I don't think I've ever had to say your last name. He says, good morning, huge trap game ahead. And, both Victors agree this one's a trap game. I believe it's a matchup where Bijan and Algier should have about 35 to 40 touches combined, leave few drives to Dak and wear their defense out. Yeah, the matchup here, it's hard to say that the Falcons defense matches up well with anybody on anything based on how they've played. But I would rather the way this Falcons team plays go up against a passing team with a bad running game than a team with a good running game, because that opens up the passing game in a big way. I think if Dak Prescott has the patience to sit back and pick the Falcons apart, he will. He'll get 50 passes and he'll have 350 yards, and it'll be a low amount of yardage per attempt, but that will be an extension of their running game. If that's allowed to happen, he will, because they're not very good running the ball. The Falcons aren't very good stopping the run, but again, I don't think they try to stop the run. And if they committed to stopping the run, I think they would do much better. They don't have to in this game. This is a really one-dimensional team. And the Falcons' defense is to sit back and keep everything in front of them and wait for teams to make a mistake. If they make a mistake, it works. If they don't, it's a long scoring drive. And that's been the way the defense has been set up. I don't particularly like that, but it has worked several times. I just don't know if it's going to work against better quarterbacks, and Dak Prescott is one of the better quarterbacks in this league. John Harrell, good to see you, John. He says, good morning, Scott and Nick and the Falcons family. That's all, y'all. He says, okay, so Dallas can't run the ball. Yeah, that's true. How about let's blanket Lamb? John, I saw your comment beforehand, and I was thinking about this, and it reminded me of the very first game. We know that the Pittsburgh Steelers offense was going to be limited. They had 2 weapons. Well, 3 if you include the running of Justin Fields, which you do need to include. They had Najee Harris. They had Justin Fields running the ball. That's it. They only had 1 passing threat, just 1, and that was George Pickens. And somehow George Pickens found his way in isolated coverages way too many times. I can't explain it. CeeDee Lamb, they do have more weapons, though. Jake Ferguson's a good player. And if you get the running backs out in space in the passing game as an extension of the passing game, they're not going to line up in the old-fashioned, Emmitt Smith and Moose I with Novacek. It wasn't Novacek, who's before him, going back to the 90s, blocking, and then Michael Irvin and Alvin Harper out wide and just bludgeon you. They're not going to do that, but they can get guys out in space and cause problems for you. But they're not going to line up and run it at you. That's for sure. So yes, CeeDee Lamb should see lots of attention for sure. Tony Hall, Antonio, good to see you. He says, good morning, Scott and Nick. Hopefully we get the dub this week, especially how we're 500 at home and unbeaten on the road. I think this one's going to be a pretty partisan Cowboys crowd. America's team, there's lots of Dallas Cowboys fans in this area. And if you've looked, I look at them every week. If you look, I go to and check scores, and usually someone's selling tickets. Whoever's got a scoreboard list, they've got also tickets for sale. Typically, Falcons tickets, it'll say like for as low as, it'll be like $30, $40. The NFC South tickets are usually much lower than, say, Green Bay and Chicago and New York, any of those teams up there. Any of the power teams are usually in the hundreds of dollars. Well, I saw this one this week, and it said tickets as low as $200. Now, part of that is the Falcons are playing better, but Falcons fans already have their tickets. So they're selling them to Cowboys fans, I promise you, and they're selling them for a profit. I don't know. The lower bowl, y'all have heard me say it before. The way that Arthur Blank changed when they moved into Mercedes-Benz and totally outpriced the fans on the lower bowl is a detriment to what should be a really intimidating home field environment for sure. Justin says, good morning. I love that Jeep, by the way. He says, good morning. Is Micah Parsons traveling with Dallas? And if so, can he just stay there or stay here when they leave? Yeah, I don't see that one happening. Now, Micah Parsons kind of strikes me as the guy that might wear out his welcome somewhere after enough time. That's okay. I'd take 3 years and 50 sacks, and then he could go somewhere else and play. I could live with that. So is he playing? I'm sure he'll travel. I'm not sure he'll travel, but he was questionable last week, questionable right now, trending forward. So we'll see. It's hard to say these days. It's like, I see day to day, and I'm like, I expect that to be a yes when I see a day to day on a Monday. But again, Troy Anderson's day to day, and he's missed a month. So that one boggles the mind a little bit. The Sunrise, Michael Ranquillo coming out and joining us this morning. Says, good morning, Scott and Nick on the Falcons podcast. You will see Nick is going to be out. There's going to be no Broncos for breakfast. I know we have a lot of crossover fans in here. No Broncos for breakfast today. I'm not going to go 2 hours by myself. My voice will give out. So no Broncos for breakfast today while Nick is recovering. John asked any word on Rook Ororo. Rook I think he'll be out. When he got his ankle rolled up on, if there's an ankle injury that takes a big man like that out, you're looking at 3 weeks minimum. Most mortals, it's 4 to 6, whether it's a break or a high ankle sprain, is a 4 to 6 week. Now, quarterbacks are, non-move around players as much. They can come back a little bit sooner than that. But most mortals on a high ankle sprain is at least 4 weeks. These guys aren't mortal. They're really superhuman. So, 2 to 4 weeks minimum is kind of what I'm guessing on this. They haven't said break, but if there's enough of a sprain to set out a professional football player, it's probably a high ankle sprain. It will be a couple of weeks on that. So that's my amateur doctors knowing that I've been around and had just about every injury there is to have and then covering this game for long enough. Austin, good to see you. Says, morning, Falcons fan. Good to see you. Silas is in the house. Good morning, everyone. He's got that coffee emoji. So let's get the win over the Cowboys. I'll drink to that. I got my Lion coffee here. And I just want to remind everybody that this Lion Coffee at lioncoffee.com is one of the partners of the Falcons podcast. They treat us very well. They literally power the Falcons podcast with the coffee in the morning. They are a Hawaiian-based company, so All-American, which I love. I'm very happy to support and be partnered with an All-American company. Yes, that means something to me. And frankly, their product is terrific. We've been drinking Lion Coffee here for 4 years now, since Patrick Wiltsey, one of the fans of the show, came in and said, hey, what if I sent you guys some coffee? Well, we love it. And our partnership has grown through the years because we love them and they've been happy with us. Plus, I mean, you got to like these colors, right? I mean, I'm drinking out of my Lion Coffee mug. You got to love these colors. So check out lioncoffee.com. And while you're there, in the description, wherever you're watching or listening to this show, you'll see a link to lioncoffee.com. You will also see a code to get yourself 20% off anything except cases or 100% Kona. Use the code GoFalcons20 to get your Lion Coffee. I promise you, if you're a coffee lover, and they have teas and stuff too. It's not just coffee. They have all kinds of fun stuff in there. Get your 20% off. Me, I'm all about the coffee. There's they've got singles and stuff to choose from, some instant, some pour overs you can take with you. Beans, ground, however you want it, however you like it. I promise you'll find something that you'll like there. We certainly have. So Silas, thanks for saying hello. It's Lion Coffee. Thanks for being a partner with us. Terry Murray, you didn't send me an email. Terry, send me an email. Write it down right now. It is skinnity@gmail.com. Where is my email address? There it is. skinnity@gmail.com. Ironically, I had 3 other people email me, but you didn't. I owe you a shirt, dude. Email me, and I'll send you. I'm going to send you the Tyler Algier shirt, and we'll be giving away another one on Monday. So stay tuned. We got some super chatters coming, including Terry. Terry coming in. So shoot me that email, skinnity@gmail.com. I know I put it up right because I got 3 emails from people asking for shirts. We're not doing it like that. We're giving one away per show on Mondays, maybe Wednesdays when Nick gets back. But I got a couple of them. We're going to be doing that. If I call your name on the show, and we called Terry's name, and Terry didn't email me. So get back to me, Terry, and we appreciate the support as always. Rusty's here. He said this is going to be one of them games where Dak throws 400 yards, 4 touchdowns, and the NFL gets back on the bandwagon because of Lake's soft defense, PSD of being a fan. And no, I get it. I look at it, and there's a couple things that stand out to me. One, these guys can pass, but they can't run. So they're going to be passing all the time. They're a little bit beat up. They've lost one of their explosive wide receivers. So they're going to be using the tight end and the running backs a lot, along with CeeDee Lamb. Atlanta will let you throw underneath. They have let everybody throw underneath. If you get greedy or you get behind, that's when you start running in trouble because then you try and force it. But if you get a lead, Atlanta's they're not really good at turning the ball over, meaning getting you off the field. And turnovers themselves are pretty volatile. If we didn't get 3 turnovers last week, you don't beat an injury-depleted Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. You can't count on getting 3 turnovers every week. I can count on putting pressure on teams if I pressure them. So, Rusty, I'm with you on this. The other thing, I look at it and I see the over-under of like 51. Man, I see like 65 in this game. I see like a 33-31, somewhere in there. But if the Falcons play their soft zone, there won't be as many possessions. That's one of the things that might keep the score down because the Cowboys will go on 14-play scoring drives, 14 play, 6-7 minutes where they're just 5 yards underneath, 5 yards underneath, 5 yards underneath, and then try and bow up in the red zone and hold them to field goals. Okay. Again, you can watch Monday's show to see how I feel about this defense right now. I'm with you on this. I think 350 yards, 2 or 3 touchdowns from Dak is about right. You hold the Cowboys under 20, you win. So you can do that. You can't let them get into a groove, into a rhythm. And by God, you better be converting on your side of the ball. You better be scoring when you get the ball. And for the most part, the Falcons have. If they're not scoring, they lose. That's just the way this team is. Right now, the defense has not put the team in position where the offense can have an off day and they can still win. Since the Saints game. Where the Falcons didn't score a touchdown, but they got a special teams touchdown, they got a defensive touchdown. But since then, the last 3 games have been this 2-4-5 base nickel, cover 3 deep, soft underneath zone where we'll give you 6 yards if you want them. Take them. If you want them, take them. We're not giving you 25 yards. We'll give you 6. It's maddening to watch. It's so frustrating to watch these teams go on these 10, 12-yard drives. And maybe they stall out in the red zone. Maybe they don't. But yes, I think Dak is patient enough and is experienced enough to sit back and have one of those 85% completion type days where he throws it 50 times for 300 yards. That's I'm kind of with you on that one as well. Greg, good to see you coming in. He says, good to be here for the live show. We'll get into this one too. With this defense, yards after contact is a problem, but yards before contact is even worse. Greg, why is that? Why is yards after contact a problem? Yards before contact a problem? And then why are they not being immediately tackled? Because they've got too much space. The offensive players have way too much space to operate in. And players, professional NFL players, are getting ahead of steam, or they're getting, 3 steps before anybody comes near them in this zone. It's so soft. We're going to be underneath. Again, I know I'm beating a dead horse here, y'all. But again, you come in with a super chat and have a comment about this, I'm going to talk about it. If I'm playing way back and I give you the 5 yard and I'm 5 yards behind you, by the time you turn, I got to make a tough open field tackle. Hold on and hope for some help. It's hard. It is hard. If you're coming at me one-on-one and you've got either direction you can beat me in, this goes back to the post play right before halftime that it was the Seahawks. It wasn't the Buccaneers, where they scored right before halftime on the deep post to DK Metcalf. And, AJ Terrell is trailing in coverage on a post in a Hail Mary situation. I'm like, that's not on AJ Terrell. You can't cover half the field, and you shouldn't be trying to cover the corner and the post on fourth and, on a one play, 35-yard play. That's ridiculous. And to his credit, Justin Simmons owned up to that. He says, that's on me. To his credit, Justin Simmons owned up to that. I can't let that happen. Those are safeties for the middle of the field. I wasn't on AJ Terrell. The point is, you're not covering anybody. You're staying in space and then letting them get their catches underneath, letting them get their yards underneath, and then trying to make a tackle and waiting and hoping they make a mistake, either a penalty or a turnover. Penalties are pretty common. We're not going to let you get beat us with explosive plays. That's become, another one of those buzzwords in the NFL is explosives. We're not going to let up the explosives. We don't think you can go 10 to 12 plays on us and score a touchdown. They may be right about half the time when they get in the red zone. Their red zone defense has been pretty good, and that's one of the saving graces, but it eats up so much time. And by God, I've put so much resources into this offense. I want the offense to have the ball quickly. I don't remember who it was, but it was like an old Dan Marino team, one of those type teams. It was like, for God's sakes, let them score. I don't care. Get them off the field. We need the ball back, because we will score. That's how I feel. That's how I'm starting to feel about this offense. You give this offense 4 possessions, they're going to score on 3 of them. And it's fun. It's fun to watch. Watching a team methodically. 2nd and 3, 3rd and 1, 1st and 10, 2nd and 4, 1st and 10, 2nd and 2, 3rd and 1, 1st and 10. Work their way down the field constantly and watching the clock tick, 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 tick. It's like, wait a minute, we only had the ball once in this quarter. It's pretty frustrating to watch. Let me check in on my my Facebook folks. I haven't had a chance to go over here and say hello yet. Want to make sure we're doing okay. It looks like Keith Brugman has come in to say hello. Hello, Keith. Want to get your comment here. Might be a little harder for me to find in the stream. So I'll read it right off of Facebook. Harry Marshall Wood in here as always. Good to see you. John Robert, Troy Green. Good to see y'all. Brad Clark, welcome in. Welcome in, everybody. Looks like we got Pam Jackson. Pam, great to see you over on Facebook. Brandon Parham, hello. Jordan Brown, good to see y'all. Appreciate y'all being here. Keith comes in with some stars. He says, good morning, Scott. You can magically change only one on-field statistic for this team. What is it? 3rd down, QB pressures, turnovers, your choice. One statistic, if I can change it. Well, it depends. I mean, can I write in whatever I want to? And that's what happens, because that'd be turnovers. Score would be the easy one. turnovers are the big ones. Those are the ones turnovers are the game changers. If I can get the turnovers and I could do that every time, you could promise me 3 turnovers. I'd take 3 turnovers over 8 sacks. But sacks lead to turnovers. Pressure leads to turnovers. So, what is this team really lacking for me on offense? I'm good on offense. Are they perfect? No. But the first 10 moves I would make on this team, from tweaking this or that, would be on the other side of the ball, would be on defense. So what would I do is pressures to me are not every pressure is created equally. We talked about that after the Seahawks game. Well, Geno was pressured on half of his snaps. No, he wasn't. He held on to the ball for as long as he could, and then he got rid of it, and then that gets chalked up as a pressure. He's a veteran pocket passer who's 6'5", who can stand in a pocket and wait and throw it downfield. He was old school. That's not pressure. That's inviting pressure, and that's giving your receivers as much time as possible. Sacks, obviously, but the big one, the number one predicator of any of those single stats other than like score, is turnovers. That's the big one, and that's why if we look at the games the Falcons lost, we look at the games the Falcons should have lost but didn't. What was it? Pittsburgh Steelers, 3 turnovers. I think it was 3-0 in that game. Seattle Seahawks, I think it was 3-1, 3-0 or 3-1. I don't remember for sure in that game. The Tampa Bay game was 3-1 in favor of the Falcons. We already talked about the Saints. I know you were ahead in that one. And the one was almost devastating for the Falcons because of where it happened. That Tyler Algier fumble ended up being a 9-point turnover because it was a safety, and then you kick it and they march right down the field and score. So turnovers, Keith, appreciate it. Turnovers is the big one. But from a day-to-day, like what needs to improve on this team the most is that one's so obvious. It's the pass rush. The pass rush is just it's just subpar. Did y'all ever see the movie Family Man with Nicolas Cage, when he has a glimpse and he goes back and he finds himself, this Wall Street guy, finds himself as a family man living in the suburbs in New Jersey, selling tires? One of my favorite movies. And actually, one of the reasons I'm probably a dad now. It's changed my life, changed my perspective on life. But he goes in and he's used to these tailored suits, and he goes into this, his new life's closet, and he sees these old sports coats, and he rubs his thumb against it. He goes, "This is just subpar." That's how I feel about a lot of this Falcons defense. And again, I see people talk about players. Matthew Judon's been a big disappointment. Okay. That statement in a vacuum, I agree with. He has been a disappointment. I'm not putting this on Matt Judon. I'm not. Grady Jarrett, David Onyemata, Arnold Ebiketie, Zach Harrison, Taquan Graham, Caden Ellis, Jesse Bates is fine, Justin Simmons, AJ Terrell. There isn't a single player I'm like, oh yeah, he's really playing well. It's a shame this guy went backwards. Matthew Judon isn't playing as well as we expected on defense. Brother, who is? Who is? And what's that tell you? There's a common denominator in there. But like I close the show with on Monday, is you can make adjustments. Will you? We'll see. But you can. You can absolutely make adjustments. And it's nice to figure these things out. Hey, we tried this. It didn't work. We've tried it more than once. It doesn't work. We need to change some things. It's nice to do that while you're 5-3 and winning games. And your offense is good enough to bail your defense out right now while you get right. Because I believe this defense as a whole is playing much worse than their individual parts. Those players I mentioned, I believe it. Your defensive line is really solid. It goes deep. Your edge rushers are okay. Your linebackers are okay. Your back side of your defense is pretty dang good. So on that one, so I think that I believe in the defense. So we talk about, I'm a personnel guy at heart. Could you trade for this guy? Could you trade for this guy? Could you trade for this? Right now, it wouldn't matter unless it forced them. It's like, oh, You bring in Max Crosby, now we're going to adjust how we play our coverage schemes because we've got a guy that can get to the passer. Until you change the way you are set up, which right now is backpedal and wait. I mean, the Falcons are playing Red Rover right now. You know, send Zeke over. Red Rover, send Zeke over. See if you can break through and we'll tackle you 8 yards from the line of scrimmage. That's what they're doing right now. And it's frustrating to watch. Stephen B., time to get McClellan some carries to gauge the running back depth. No. No. Unless it's 40-10, I don't need McClellan to get any carries. I want Bijan and Tyler to get carries. If they run 80 plays, I want Kirk throwing it 40 times, and I want Tyler and Bijan having 40 carries. So I don't need to see McClellan this year. That means something has gone wrong. I don't necessarily need to see that. John Roberts says Atlanta needs to blitz. Not only blitz, but not be so predictable in their blitzes. Again, I watched Dallas and San Francisco last night, and San Francisco was committing 8 guys to the box against the Cowboys. You know, they'd back out of that, but it was tight. It was crowded in there, and they'd bring guys you wouldn't know where they were coming from. The Falcons are so far off the ball, and the splits are so wide on the defense with their front 4, which is 2 stand-up edges, playing way outside the tackles. So you've got between, let's say I got James Smith-Williams at left end and David Onyemata at left defensive tackle. There's 3 players between them. Enough space for 3 players between them. So when Caden Ellis comes up to blitz the middle, well, he's pretty easy to pick up. I see him coming. There's nobody coming off the sides. You can't. How am I supposed to run a corner or safety blitz? My corners and safeties are 10 yards off the line of scrimmage. They're never going to get there. They're never going to get there. Celio Lopez says, who will get the first sack for Atlanta? You mean this year? 6 sacks. 6. I haven't done it yet to see, because they're on pace for what, 14 sacks? 13 sacks. I haven't gone back to see how bad that is. I bet nobody has had 13 or less sacks in 20 years. In 20 years. How are you going to be a serious playoff team with the worst pass rush in 2 decades? You're not. I mean, the answer to that's pretty easy. You're not. You're just not. Curtis Case. Good to see you, Curtis. He says, one thing I would change is fire the DC and bring back Ryan Nielsen as the DC and let him cook. That's not going to happen this early. It might happen after year 1. You might make a change. It's not going to happen in season unless, there was a Buddy Ryan incident where he's throwing. Who else is old enough to remember Buddy Ryan throwing hands? What was he with the Houston Oilers at the time? Throwing hands on the sidelines against his offensive coordinator. Unless something like that happens, which isn't going to, I'd like to give Jimmy Lake the benefit of the doubt to adjust because this isn't working. It's not working. And they've come out the same way 3 games in a row with that 2-4-5 base nickel. That's fine if it's 3rd and 8, but 1st and 10, 2nd and 4, it's first downs. And that's why I think the Falcons, I think they were 31st. When I wrote it up last week, they were 31st in 3rd down conversions. They were bottom 6 or 7 in turnovers. That probably went up. You got 3 of them. And then they were also bottom 5 in time of possession. So they weren't getting teams off the field at all. And I got a lot of money in this offense. If I can't get the guys off the field, that means first-round pick, Bijan Robinson. First-round pick, Kyle Pitts. First-round pick, Drake London in the last 3 years. $50 million, Kirk Cousins. They're not getting the ball. I need to get them off the field. Ryan Nielsen might be available again after this year. He won't be out of work long. And if you look back, it was 2021. The Falcons had, I think, 18 sacks. 18 was an awful number. It was awful. They're on pace to get 60% of that this year. 66% of that this year. How bad was it, you ask? How bad was it? If the Falcons picked up Micah Parsons, and he had 10 sacks for that team, they still would have been last. That's how bad 18 sacks was that year. The next closest was the Philadelphia Eagles at 29. So they go from 18, I think, to 24 the next year. Go from 18 to 24 the next year. I think they were still bottom 3. And then it seemed like pressure everywhere. Ryan Nielsen's first year, who mixes up coverages, mixes up blitzes. I think it was 42, 43 sacks, right in there, plus or minus 1 or 2. Doubled. Had more than the next 2 years combined with 40 plus sacks. Would you say the personnel on this team has gotten worse from last year to this year? You added Matt Judon. You lost Calais Campbell. You lost Bud Dupree. You have picked up. I'm gone fuzzy for some reason here. Let me see if I can. Fix the white balance on this for just a moment. See if that helps a little bit, or if it's just you're just fuzzy. You lost Bud. Really, the players you lost were Bud Dupree and Calais Campbell. That was 13 sacks. But did they mean more than that based on what they were doing, the attention they were drawing, opening up other people? No. You won't convince me of that. Arnold Ebiketti's gone from 6 sacks to a ghost. Zach Harrison had, 4 sacks and tackles for loss in his last 3 games. He's a ghost. Matthew Judon has 30-something sacks in the last few years. He's a shell of his former self, guarding running backs on wheel routes on 3rd and 6. So, no, it's not personnel. And we saw the difference between when Richie Grant's out there and when Justin Simmons is out there. It's not personnel. The personnel has improved and the defense has gotten worse. That tells me a lot of what I need to know about that. We're at about 32 minutes. Let me, and Eric agrees with me. We'll see. He says personnel is definitely better. Good to see you. Good to see you. Thank you, Eric. And Justin, looking this up for me. It says fewest sacks in a season. And that was in 82. That was like the dead ball era, Justin. Appreciate you looking that up. 11 sacks, Baltimore in 1982, Buffalo in 1982 with 13, and 13 with Baltimore in 1981. So 2 of the same teams there. That was Buffalo. You know what happened in 1983? Buffalo drafted Jim Kelly. Let's see. How old was Biscuit Bennett? And when did Bruce Smith come out? Bruce Smith. All of a sudden, you get Bruce Smith and you get Biscuit Bennett. All of a sudden, sacks aren't a problem anymore. So, that turned around, and that core of then Thurman Thomas comes in, leads Buffalo to 4 AFC titles. Let me see here. Dave comes in. He says, I saw some knocking Nielsen for what's going on in Jacksonville. The Falcons have better personnel on defense than the Jags. Yeah, they do. They do. And from back to front, and Jacksonville's just been a little dysfunctional lately anyway, So Ryan Nielsen is a good defensive coordinator. He won't be out of a job long, for sure. Ryan Adonis says, would you feel better having 36 sacks as a team and being 2-6? There's probably some psychological phrase to this, the whataboutism type of this. But you're allowed to have both. You're allowed to win. And no, Ryan, like I said a few minutes ago, it's nice to be able to win while you are struggling because there are things that you can do better. However, I have bigger goals than 5-3 for this team. This team was 4-3 last year. How'd that work out? People say as long as you win, nothing else matters. That only matters in one game, the Super Bowl. That's it. Everything else, you're working on something to get better for the next week. If you are of the opinion that it's all good because you're 5-3, you're wrong. You're just wrong. But no, it's good to be able to work on these things while you are living. And I promise you, Ryan, with this team, if the Falcons had 36 sacks, brother, they'd be 8-0. Don't give me this garbage. Come on now, use your head. Let's see. Terry says, no shade to Nick, but Scott's good potting solo, which isn't easy. Oh, I appreciate it. I wouldn't want to do it every time. My throat starts to give out. I mean, appreciate it, Nick. And it's nice having it is nice having sometimes those breaks where you can like look something up. So I appreciated Eric looking something up where I can grab a big slug of my Lion coffee here. So I certainly appreciate it. Chris Tyler says, why is it when we have an offensive coach, our offense is issue, and now a defensive coach and defense is issue? That's a good question. And I think it's because, and I said this before the season started, when the Falcons did not go and get this before Justin Simmons, obviously, the Falcons did not address the defensive backfield when there was obviously a question at safety. You know, DeMarco Hellams, is he going to be the guy? I don't know. I mean, he was okay for a 6th-round pick at the end of his rookie season. He played well for a rookie. He didn't necessarily play well. Richie Grant has been a failure for the Atlanta Falcons. Your cornerback too was a big question. So what do you do there? And Mike, appreciate this also. People say you interrupt Nick too much. Well, I interrupt myself too much. 1982 was a strike season. There you go. There's the dead ball era. So thank you. Going back to this, I watched this with Dan Quinn. Okay. We have a defensive coach. Therefore, we can scheme up our players. We need to put our money into our offense. I feel like that's just the way it goes. Now, it didn't work like that with Arthur Smith. That's for damn sure. They put all their money on offense, all their draft picks. They didn't have any money. They put all their picks into the offensive side of the ball. But my point was, when they didn't make a move for a secondary player, like I said, this was before Justin Simmons, and I'm looking at that coaching staff, and I'm looking at Raheem Morris, defensive backs coach. I'm looking at Jimmy Lake, defensive backs coach. I'm looking at Jerry Gray, defensive backs coach. There is a massive amount of ego and hubris with coaches that have made it to that level. That's not an insult. They have to have that to get to where they have been. They have to have an unbelievable, undeniable belief in what they do, and they have to be good at it. There's some feelings there. It's like, I like what I got. I can work with these guys. And I honestly think that's part of it. When it comes to why is it we have a defensive coach, but the defense is struggling? Well, because I got the defense. We're going to make sure that we put our resources into the offensive side of the ball. They do know, though, we got to be strong up front. And that's why the entire draft after the quarterback was put into the defensive front, which are 2-3 year players down the line, which we're seeing. Let me see here. Eric Parker, do you think, appreciate you, Eric. Thanks for coming in. Do you think the entire NFC South defenses are horrible? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. You look at the standings or the stats, and I look at this, and I look at the team stats, and I sort it over to defensive leaders, complete leaders. And when I sort by yards per game, 30, 31, and 32 in yards. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Carolina Panthers, New Orleans Saints. 30, 31, 32. The Atlanta Falcons have played 4 of their games against who again? So the offense looks good, but is some of this, are they down there because the Falcons are hanging 600 yards on Tampa Bay on a Thursday night? Maybe part of it. Or, Tampa Bay has been beat up. The injuries have gotten these guys in Carolina is just bad. I look at scoring. Defense. 32, Carolina Panthers. 31, let's get to the topic of the show, Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys have given up a lot of points, and they're just not very good at stopping the run or the pass on both sides of the ball. But yes, I think every NFC South defense is bad right now. That's what I think. The stats back me up on this. So yes, I think the Falcons have the potential to have the best defense, to have a upper half defense. Right now, 28th would put you first in the NFC South. So that obviously isn't good enough. So going back to, would you rather be 2-6 and have 36 sacks, or it doesn't matter as long as you're winning? As long as you're improving, I'll live with that. I'm okay with that. Like, listen, we won We haven't been good in this aspect of the game, but we're improving. I'm seeing growth here. Falcons aren't doing that on defense. They're actually regressing. They're getting worse on defense. That's where it should be concerning to all of the, as long as we're winning, it doesn't matter. You're 4-0 against the NFC South. You have 5 wins. You know who else is 3-0 against the NFC South? The Denver Broncos. They've got the second easiest schedule in the NFL. The Broncos and Falcons are 7-0 against the NFC South. Well, it's going to have to step up a little bit. Dallas's last 2 losses have come to the 49ers and the Lions. Brother, that's not the Saints and the Buccaneers, a beat-up Buccaneers team or the Panthers anymore. I'm not taking Dallas for granted by any stretch of the imagination. They could turn this thing around and finish 9-8, 10-7. They're going to be a decent team. One more thing here. Let me see what this what Dave has to say. He says, hey, Scott, do fans realize by making trades, the Falcons become the first team in NFL history not to have any picks going into the draft? Crosby and Garrett sounds great, but this is a scheme issue. Yeah, I agree with you. They've only got 4 picks right now. Now, would you give all of them away? Would I give away all 4 of those picks for Max Crosby? Yeah, I would. Because it would cost you more than that. They wouldn't take all of your picks right now because it's a first. I don't remember which one you traded away. The Judon pick was next year's 3rd, so there goes that one. But you've only got 4. They wouldn't take your 4. It would take another first round for 2026. But again, until you become more aggressive on defense, the personnel doesn't matter. This isn't a personnel issue yet. Not yet. When Ebiketti's getting 6 sacks and goes from 6 to 0, Zach Harrison has become a ghost. It's not a personnel issue yet. This is a scheming issue on defense. So, Terry, I agree with you. Let's make sure that Simmons and Bates are rolling over on Lamb. And I don't know if you can't, you got to have a corner and then you back them up. So make sure, that Simmons and Bates they've got a pretty good idea where Lamb is on every play. And I think that would happen. Ferguson will be a problem. You know why? Because the middle of the field's open. Because you're so far back. So tight ends are going to give these teams fits, Terry. So I agree with that one. I like the point, and the point is the middle of the fields are open. The drag routes are open. The in routes are open. Up the middle is open. It's all open. You know what's not open is the 20-yard pass where everybody's standing. That's what's not open right now. Going back to talking about giving away all your picks. Ditka traded, but that was a draft day trade. That they didn't go into the draft with that when they made all those they traded all those players for Reggie Williams, a running back. You know who made the biggest mistake in that was the Indianapolis Colts. The Indianapolis Colts drafted Edgerrin James ahead of Ricky Williams. Now that's not the mistake. Edgerrin James was a better player. The mistake was they could have fleeced the Saints for 4 or 5 picks, still gotten Edgerrin James and gotten 4 or 5 extra picks because the Saints had pretty much played their hand. So that's where I go back and think about that. And Bucks Race Bolts was in here this weekend. He was in here on Monday. He was really pissed about the non-fumble call. About the fumble call. And whichever way that one went, I would have understood. For me, it was Kyle Pitts never should have been an issue. Take care of the ball. But for me, that play was whatever they called on the field was going to stand because they didn't have a good view of it. You couldn't tell from any of the replays what for 100% sure happened. And that was the way that was going to stand. So we're about to get out of here. Are there any last burning questions we want to get in here? Brennan, good to see you. He says we should see Bijan get 150 plus and Algier get close to 100. And I actually liked this crew. Who did we have? We have Greg Olson last week in Atlanta. I thought they did a much better job. Anything's better than Vilma right now. It's not Algiers. It's not Algiers. That's a country, at least used to be. They changed country names so much anymore. I'm not even sure if it is anymore. But it's not Algiers. It's Tyler Algier. Now, I have trouble spelling his name, but it's definitely Algier. That said, Kirk needs to be smart, not throw picks. Also, pressure. Yeah, I feel much better about the running game and Kirk Cousins taking care of the ball than I do about putting pressure on Dak Prescott. I mean, the thing is they don't protect Dak that well. This is not a great pass blocking team. I don't know if it's going to matter, y'all. I mean, they're not a running team, so I don't have to commit bodies forward to stop the run, which they're not doing anyway. They really don't against this one, so it actually makes sense. But I don't know. I really don't. I'd put 9 men on the line of scrimmage. I would put a corner on CD. I would shade a safety over to his side, and I would attack. That's how I'd go after these guys. But what you're going to see is what we have seen, which is a light front because we're not afraid of the run, and don't give up the big play. And we're going to see Dak Prescott throw for 80% completions 50 times and somewhere in the neighborhood of 325, 330 yards. Don't turn over the ball, and you should be okay. But that one's tough. Harry Marshall Wood says, do you think that Kirk Cousins has a realistic shot at MVP this year? The MVP is really it's a numbers/team award. So if he rolls, the Falcons roll to the Super Bowl, then yeah, he'll be in it. But I think the defense, as strange as it sounds, the defense will hold him back from. It won't be just numbers. Like, okay, he's putting up numbers on a 500 team. That won't do it. That won't be enough. But what he should get, I would be interested in, is can he still get comeback player of the year? You know, he played 8 games last week. Would he be eligible for comeback player of the year? I would imagine he should be. So I think that one is the one that makes sense. Terry, a prediction. All right. Then we're going to get out of here. The prediction for this one is, let's go back and look at what the Dallas Cowboys do well, which is throw the ball, about 260 yards. What they don't do well is run the ball. The Falcons don't stop the run, and they're not going to even try in this game. They're like, all right, we'll let you, if you want to run the ball, fine. You're not going to beat us passing. So they're going to sit back in their usual soft shell and make Dak throw the ball 50 times underneath and have the patience to do so, and hoping that they can either get this offensive line that isn't playing very well to hold, false starts, force penalties, put Dak into a moment where he has to feel a little greedy, and then you can intercept him. Because he's thrown a bunch this year. He's 10 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. He only threw 9 last year. I think he finished 3rd in the MVP last year. He only threw 9 interceptions last year. He's thrown 8 already this year. So he'll put it in trouble. I would almost take the ball first. Forget deferring. I would almost take the ball first if I win the toss and put pressure on them. If you make Dallas play from behind, that's how you can put pressure on them, where they feel like they have to start making plays down the field. If they get the ball first and go down and score and feel comfortable methodically throwing it underneath, that Prescott's going to throw the ball 50 times for 350 yards, 2 or 3 touchdowns, and you better hope you get the ball enough on offense where you can score. The over-under on this one's 51. The Falcons are favored by 3. I like the Falcons in this one. People say it's a trap game. Man, the Dallas Cowboys are America's team. The Dallas Cowboys are never anybody's trap team. People love to play the Dallas Cowboys. They will be up to play against the Dallas Cowboys. They're not overlooking this team, I promise you. It's the Dallas Cowboys. People hate the Dallas Cowboys. So it's not a trap game in that regard. It's the Dallas Cowboys. That still means something. I like this somewhere in the neighborhood of 31-24 Falcons. So we'll see. We will see on that one. What do we got here, John? 248, 247 Atlanta. That was probably, I'm not quite sure what that one is. Keith Brugman says Dallas 27-24, making this a wake-up call for the defense and the coaches. Very, very possible. So we'll see. John says 48-14 Dallas. Yeah, I don't see that happening. Are our coordinators on the hot seat? Zach Robinson absolutely is not on the hot seat. I feel like our success is a product of having a good quarterback on a good team. That's okay. Every Hall of Fame coach in the world has had a Hall of Fame quarterback, except maybe Joe Gibbs, who did it with 3. And they're holding us back. What do we need to see from them in your eyes? I think Zach Robinson, if he has this year and next year will be a head coach in 2026. I think Zach Robinson is progressing just fine. The offense looks great. If it's all on the quarterback, it doesn't matter. Nathaniel Hackett got a head coaching job because of Aaron Rodgers. Nathaniel Hackett is a bozo. So it doesn't matter. That was one of the things about, making sure Michael Penix learns the system. He'll never play for Zach Robinson. Not if he starts in 2026, Zach Robinson will be gone. He'll either be a head coach somewhere or he'll be fired. That's just the nature of offensive coordinators. Every single team has turned over their offensive coordinators in the last 2 years. Every single one, 32 out of 32. So I think Zach Robinson is fine. I think what Jimmy Lake is doing is poor. So am I going to say fire Jimmy Lake now? No, I'm not. Let's get to the end of the season, see what kind of adjustments this team makes. But right now, the trajectory of the Atlanta Falcons defense is not good enough. It's subpar. And there's too much investment on the defensive line. I got 8 defensive linemen. I play 2 at a time. Ugh. No, I got 2 of the best safeties, and I play them backpedaling. I play them backpedaling. I don't turn them loose to make plays. No, it's too passive. It's too soft. It's not working, and it needs to change. We'll see. There's 9 games left. Hopefully more than that. So we'll see on that. Listen, I want to say thanks everybody for coming in. I hope I didn't miss anyone. Keith and Ellen Johnson over on Facebook. I see you. Thank you for the stars. Keith Brugman, thank you for the stars as well. And then over on the, I saw my email address up. See, that's why you need a producer. Let me get rid of this. This is the Falcons podcast. Make sure you're checking out your Lion Coffee. Let me give them one last plug here. But I want to say thank you to Terry for coming back. Terry, shoot me an email. I've gotten a bunch of emails since we've been on. Rusty, thank you so much. Greg, Curtis, thank you for the support. We will be back on Monday. Should be a fun game. I think it's going to be a high-flying game. I think it's going to be lots of scoring. I saw the over-under was 51. If there was one prediction I was going to make, it would be the over. I like the over in this one. What was it, 31-26 with the Buccaneers and Falcons? That's 57 points with a depleted wide receiver room for Tampa. I like the over. That's the prediction I would make. Take the over. On that note, I'm going to get out of here. I appreciate everybody for being here. I've had a lot of fun with y'all today. We'll be back on Monday. Hopefully it'll be another Monday, Victory Monday for Atlanta Falcons fans. Y'all have a great rest of your week. Enjoy the football weekend. Enjoy this gorgeous weather. Happy Halloween, everybody. See you next week.